What's going on, guys? My name is Noah, and today I'm going to venture into a topic of mood disorder that many of us, perhaps every single one of us who has ever dealt with depression, anxiety, depersonalization, has wondered from time to time, what does it feel like to come out of a clinical depression or a major depressive episode? What's normal? These are things that a lot of us, when we feel terrible, we just obsess over, and we imagine, and we wonder, and some of us, we continue to obsess over this whole topic even after perhaps we have recovered largely from the mood disorder from which we were suffering. We're just so unfamiliar with what normal feels like that we can no longer identify like a baseline, or so we think. I had a breakdown in 2011 that spun me into a major depressive episode. Treatment resistant, lots of anxiety, lots of depression, lots of dark ruminating thoughts, and a lot of suicidal ideations. And it was long lasting. It lasted a year and a few months before it even got a little bit better. So the question, what does it feel like to come out? I think at one point, I thought coming out of a major depressive episode was going to be like a light switch. Even though it was so long lasting, I just imagined one day I would wake up and feel okay. And so what I would do is I would wake up every day and quickly assess how I was doing. Quickly take an inventory. How depressed do I feel? How suicidal do I feel? How tight is my chest? How depersonalized am I? And that was sort of this pattern that I just continued on forever, months and months and months and years. What I found was that coming out of depression was very similar to kind of wandering into it for a lot of people. It just sort of happens, kind of unbeknownst to you. If you keep a really close eye on it, you might not realize it. It's more like you wake up one day and it just dawns on you that things have been getting a little bit easier. You know what I mean? It's not like this thrusting into happiness and into serenity, but it's more like a general sense of things not being so acutely uncomfortable all the time. Because when you're really depressed, I mean really fucking depressed, you're very, very aware of how uncomfortable it is. I liken it a lot to the flu for people that have never battled depression and anxiety. Everybody knows that when you have the flu, a very specific and acute case of the flu, you cannot deny the symptoms and you just can't ignore them. You sort of get through them, and that's just the way that shit goes. Well, it's the exact same thing for me when I'm severely depressed. It's a physical thing. It's a mental and emotional thing. It's very all-encompassing. But when you come out of major depression, it's just not so obvious to you anymore. Now, a little caveat to that is that you might deal with something else called dysthymia, which is something I deal with. It's a low-grade, chronic feeling of morose and a little bit lack of interest, perhaps some apathy, a little bit of depression, sort of mild depressive and anxious symptoms. But I still consider myself out of clinical and major depression because now I'm able to function a little bit better, and you sort of have to go at it like that. I think another misconception a lot of people have, and again, this is just going off my experience and the experience of a lot of people that I've known over the time that I've been talking about this on this channel and been reaching out to people and the depressives I've met in my community. There's a big difference between getting out of a clinical depression and being happy. You know, being joyous and free, thriving. I think some people, including myself, I just thought one day I would go into this other realm, like an opposite end of the spectrum, from being severe to being really, really happy. And that's definitely not the case. That's not been my story. Have I had moments of happiness? Yes. Have they been fleeting? Yes. Is my baseline still kind of a bit low and a bit anxious? Yes. And it's sort of this whole new quest. So for people that are suffering acutely and really in the shit, just know that you will come out of it, but you might not realize you're out of it till you've been out of it for a while. It just sort of settles over you slowly. And it's kind of hard to realize it's there until you just do. Maybe you'll think that's a cop-out, but here's another thing, and I will leave you with this, and hopefully this will give you at least a moderate sense of comfort. When you know, you know. I think there's this idea that we won't recognize normal anymore. You do. You recognize feeling okay once you actually feel okay, even if you become extremely accustomed to not feeling okay. So I tell people, when you were well, back before you ended up depressed, anxious, depersonalized, schizo, bipolar, whatever suffering you deal with, did you realize when you felt like shit And everyone's like, well, yeah, of course I realized and I felt like shit because suddenly I felt like shit. Well, the human spirit is pretty akin to the feelings of not feeling like shit at the same time. Now, you might be bitter with that shit. You might not trust it, and you might not want to tell everybody you feel okay because you don't believe it's going to stay with you because it can be fleeting. But you will know deep down in here. And then the more stable time you have, the more you'll come to terms with it, the more you'll trust it. But you will have to work like I'm having to work, or at least many of us are going to have to work really hard to find happiness, peace of mind, a sense of self, serenity, joy, vitality. A lot of those things don't come simply from being done with your major depressive episode. There's a lot of shit we have to work through and build through and overcome. A lot of bricks need to be relaid. The foundation is just wiped clean. So you kind of have to learn how to do that and then work through other things like dysthymia, like I work through. But you will be grateful, you will be appreciative, and for God's sake, you're going to know when you know. I hope that made sense. I hope that was of value to someone, but I really appreciate your time. I'm sorry if you're suffering. Sincerely, I'm sorry if you're suffering. I wish I could take it from everyone. I wish I could. And not like be a martyr, but I just mean on an individual basis, when people reach out and tell me they're suffering, I feel it because I remember that severe suffering. And there are few things on this earth I can imagine being worse than clinical depression and severe anxiety with depersonalization. So be brave. One day, 1 hour, 1 minute at a time, you can have the chance to keep fighting. If I can make it, you can make it. Reach out for support. Check out healingfromdepression.com. Really awesome website. This is not my own, but a man who runs it is a very close friend of mine. And don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle, as they say in 12-step programs. My name is Noah. Leave comments below. Tell me your experience coming out of clinical depression. If you have a good experience, share it. Share it, because the comment section, that's what this is all about. It's not all about me. I might be the focal point of the video, but you guys, all of us together, we're the focal point of this topic, this issue, this thing we all suffer from. So leave your experiences in the comments below and share with each other, because what you write could very well save someone's life. Don't deny that possibility. It's a real thing. Pretty powerful aspect of this platform. We'll see you guys in the next video, and thank you for your time.